Hello and welcome to this episode of Hampton Roads Business Live. My name is Rory Graham and I'm your host, and today we have the pleasure of having with us John Koehler from Koehler Books, and I am looking forward to this interview. I've had some authors on here.
Oh, good.
But I haven't had a publisher. So this is good. Maybe I can introduce you to some. I find it a very interesting field and a really changing one. And you've got quite a niche there that you all work in, and because we talked a little bit before, so I'm sure everybody will find this interesting. Give us an overview.
Okay. Koehler Books is a small publishing company right here in Virginia Beach. We were talking about the search engines. Yes, we do show up #1 for Virginia publishers, but there aren't that many publishers out there. I mean, that's just a fact. But I got in it originally, Rory, because I was writing my own books back in 2005. It was a book about being bipolar, of all things. And so I said, man, I got to put this out. I'm not going to wait in line and wait for a publisher to kind of, give me permission. So I figured out how to do it. I self-published it. I figured out the printing. I laid it out. I'm a designer by trade. All that stuff, the cover, I knew how to do it, but I didn't know about editing. I knew I had to pay for it. Figured all that stuff out. Found the printer, digital printers, lightning source, all this kind of stuff. And then I did a couple more books. And then around 2008, I had people, local people, coming to me saying, hey, would you publish my book? And I'm like, what? Crazy? And then they offer me all this money, and I go, well, maybe I could do that. I just hadn't considered it, but I was looking at it just like I did my ad business. It's like a brochure or another branding piece. And anyway, that's kind of how it started. And then we went full time about 3 years ago, and now we work with agents and authors who have sold millions of books, and some who are brand new. We do, print, we do soft cover, hardcover, ebooks, audio, you name it. We're a publisher.
Okay, so you mentioned audio too, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Because I'm a member of Audible. I get an Audible every month. It's the only way I find to get time to get to everything because I also order hardback copies of things, but I read a lot. And
hardbacks are still selling, man.
Yeah,
People think it's only ebooks, but it's not. I mean, the ebooks are rising, but I personally think they're not even up close to print yet. I think they're going to kind of balance out.
Yeah. Well, I have some things in ebooks, but most everything's either hard copy or it's on audio, and sometimes I have audio and hard copy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it just depends on the book.
Oh yeah.
But all right. So now you have a partner too, right?
Yes.
So, okay. In this, all right. Okay. And you mentioned that you do fiction and nonfiction.
Right.
All right. So so if someone's an author, it really doesn't make any difference what style they are. I mean, you've done all kinds of books, right?
We've done all kinds. It probably makes more of a difference for the fiction writers because they know kind of in the literary world, the editing is really important. But you're right, it's just as important for a nonfiction book. We do business books or we do health books or various things. So yeah, I mean, the editing it's got to be done,
And you do the editing?
Oh yeah, we handle all of it. Yeah.
All right, so you do the editing, you do the cover design, which can be really important for marketing.
Yeah. The package is what it's called.
Oh, the package. Okay. All right. Do you have? Do you participate in the marketing of it as far as besides distribution, which is huge? A huge part of it, I'm sure.
It is ginormous. There's two main things. Touch on the marketing, but the reason why the agents and the authors are coming to us is because primarily for two things. There's a creative development, meaning the editing, the page layout, the cover design, all that stuff, and there's the distribution, okay? And the distribution, we go out to bookstores, we go out online, we go to ebooks and all the different things. But then part of that is the marketing. And the authors always want to know. And what we tell them, it's a two-way street, especially with a smaller publisher like us. We're marketing up kind of upstream to the distributors, to Ingram, who's our distributor, to booksellers, et cetera. So we want to make sure that the book is seen by them. We want to get noticed in that arena. As far as the readers go, we do some things on our website. We buy ads and we do some certain things, but really that's the author. It's their job to
So it's the author's
publicize
job, more or
the
less.
book. And so if we do both of those things well, then the marketing has a real good
Because
chance.
it's in your best interest, obviously, to sell as many books as you can, and of course the author wants to do that.
Yep.
Okay, so there's traditional publishing, and I know that there's a thing called self-publishing.
Yes.
Okay, can you talk about the difference and how you fit into that?
Yeah.
Or where you can help us even help someone that's self-publishing of some sort?
You bet. And we're not one of those hoity-toity publishers who puts down self-publishing, or there's a lot of writers groups and people in the business who just think it's the most awful thing ever, which is completely nuts. It's created a venue and an opportunity for so many authors to get their work out there, and some of them, a small percentage of them, are doing great and they've made millions, and
Right.
it's amazing. So we have self-publishing, and then the other end of the spectrum is traditional publishing. You touched on that. And that would be, most people think about like the big five, Penguin, who, by the way, bought a self-publishing business, by the way, because they're smart and they're trying to stay ahead of the curve. So that is a deal where the publisher essentially buys the book, buys the rights to it, gives them an advance of some kind. In our case, it's a small advance, and takes care of all the rights, takes care of everything. The author doesn't pay a thing. And then, they get royalties. So you have self-publishing, traditional publishing, and then right in the middle is what we call hybrid publishing. And that's for an author like us. We do the traditional deals, but for a new, we call them emerging author, we're not going to do it as a traditional deal. They don't have the chops, they don't have the background, they don't have the sales or everything else, but they got a good piece of work, so we're willing to take a risk on it, but they have to share in the load.
Right.
They have to pay in, and so it's a hybrid deal. And typically they pay anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000, to have their book from beginning to end, turnkey, to get it up there. And we treat them exactly like the traditional authors, believe it or not. And they like that.
Okay. Well, the world is, it's an overused statement, but it's true. The world is changing, and it's changing so fast in media. It used to be that you had to, if you wanted a press release, or you wanted a story, or you wanted to say something, you had to go to the newspapers, or you had to go to one of the 3 networks, or whatever. Now a guy's sitting in his underwear in his basement has got a blog, and he can talk to the world,
Yep.
And so you don't need that permission anymore.
Right.
So this is where I saw in publishing that self-publishing is there, but you still need help.
Yes.
A lot of times you need professionals that do know what they're doing
Yes.
to help you with your project to make it a success, and that's where you come in.
That's exactly right. And we work with our authors to help them to become more professional and branded with things like you said, like with social media. We work with them. We get a publicist on a call or 2 with them and help them. We set them up with, with publishing partners so they can go and get website done, so they can come to guys like you and get communications work done and videos done and, book trailers and so forth. They need all that stuff,
Right.
And so we kind of guide them, we teach them, we show them, we talk about guerrilla marketing techniques, where it doesn't cost them very much to do the things that they can do. They don't know how to do all this stuff, but we do. We've been through it.
Yeah, well, it's important because you can't do everything.
No.
And a lot of times you don't know what you don't know until you talk to somebody. So,
Yeah.
so I learned a few things talking to you just a few minutes ago that before this, and I said, wow, I hadn't thought of that. so it's good. All right, so we've talked about the emerging author program, and so how long does it take to get a book published? Because I know writing a book can be a challenge, and that can take people forever. And it's my belief that most people have thought about writing a book at some point in time. Most people have, or I've been told, you should write a book about that, whatever. But it's difficult to do for most, and so not everybody does. So one of the things that people are afraid to write, they don't know the first thing about getting it published. and you hear that it takes forever to get something published.
Can.
Yeah.
Just to back
I
up
was
a little
hoping
bit.
it was going to be
right. Well, no.
a better answer.
I'll answer you. Okay, it can. We can get it out in as little as 4 to 6 months. If you go self-publishing, you can get that thing out in a month or two. I mean, it can be really, really quick. Our issue and our situation is that we're playing into Ingram's catalog and their season. All right, and so that's usually about a year out. So if an author's going to come in with us and they want to get treated properly and correctly, and with our presentations to the Ingram, they've got 45 or so reps. Guess what? They sell tens of millions of books. So we love it when we can present our author's book to them. That's what we do twice, and once in person. So we want to go down that road with them, and and basically present the book. However, if an author has, let's say they've got an event coming up in 5 months, and it's a business guy, and he's not worried so much about Amazon per se, but he's got to have 1,000 books in hand for this event. We can make that happen. It's entirely possible.
Well, that brings up a question. If you're self-publishing or not, is there a minimum quantity you have to have printed? Or do you have to have a garage full of your books?
No.
No,
that's old school. You shouldn't have to do that anymore. However, there are some publishers, that's part of the deal. They have a book buy option as part of the deal, so that they may reduce their fees, but for services, but they say, oh, and by the way, you're going to have to buy X number of books over the next 2 years. Well, you're going to pay, to do it.
Right.
But generally speaking, if you self-publish it, no. Self-publishing should not have that built in, though you have to be careful. So it's the old buyers beware.
Right.
The reason why self-publishing can have such bad, kind of whatever about it, bad reputation, is because there's those few companies that are ripping off authors. They're taking advantage of them.
Well, that's and I've heard some horror stories on that, but I've also heard some people have had success with it. So I guess it's who you know.
You have to be smart. That's what we tell the authors is, look, go out there. We give them names, we give them recommendations, etc., for some of these partners, and we say, go out there, be smart. Don't.
So a traditional method. About how long does the average book take, or is there an average?
To get it out there, about a year. But here's what's interesting, Rory, is that the old school method, if you said, hey, your book's going to be out 1 year from now, really not much would happen. But now, with the internet, a lot happens before the launch of the book, okay? Because it used to be nothing would happen. It would get in the bookstores, and then you create a buzz because, let's say we've just signed a person. Now we're getting them to fill out, the author's filling out a questionnaire. Then we're putting that information, we're editing it, putting it up on the title management system on Ingram. Then we're designing the cover. Then we're flicking the switch and we're going, boom, now that book is out on Amazon and everywhere for pre-sales, which is fabulous for SEO, and the author can say, hey, guess what? My book is now available on Amazon. Go check it out, or barnesandnoble.com, or Books A Million, or whatever. And then before the launch, it'll come out as an ebook, and it will also actually start shipping to the online retailers.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movies do. You start seeing trailers. You used to see a trailer for what's coming next week.
Right.
But now you're seeing them for months in advance, and sometime even a year in advance.
That's right.
I'm expecting to see the Star Wars trailer for the new Star Wars film anytime now, coming out. Because they give you a little taste to start to create a buzz and an interest, and it builds over time.
Okay, you just touched on something really important, meaning the author can't, once they sign with us, they just can't sit back and wait until launch. They need to start, and we work with them on this, we help them. They need to start building their author website, okay, and making sure that it's hitting all the right bells for that. We have tons of examples. Again, we can send them in the right direction. And then working on the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, getting on Goodreads. It's ginormous. Yeah. Pinterest, all the different social media, shops are a great way to, with free, get the word out.
Right, because when someone shares something on Facebook, it goes to all of their people. So you've just just massively can get in front of millions very fast.
Yep.
So if if you have something of interest there. So okay, another question we had on here was, do you pay royalties? I know any aspiring author is sitting there going, yeah, and how do I make money?
We better pay royalties.
Yeah.
There's kind of two ways an author can make money. It's either on the front end through an advance, or it's on the back end through royalties. We always pay royalties. There's been a few occasions where we had some authors who said, look, I just want 500 copies for my family. I don't want it up anywhere. So that's more of a legacy book. But 98% of the time, 99% of the time, you bet, we pay royalties. I mean, we're sending out checks today and tomorrow, several $1,000s, which, it makes me happy because it means we're doing it right.
Right.
We're paying royalties.
I was going to ask you, what is there a percentage that royalties typically are in the business? What is the percentage?
There's different ways to do royalties. A lot of the big publishers will work off the list price. So let's say it's a $20 book, you're going to get about 10% of the list. So it would be about $2, depending on the way that they go. And then we work off the net. So it's a little bit different, meaning there's the wholesale price minus distribution fees, et cetera. So it really depends on the cost of the book. It might be anywhere from $1 to $2, depending on where you are. A lot of authors, maybe they've self-published and they were making $2.50 to $3 per book. You're not going to get that from a publisher, because
But if you have the distribution out there, we were talking before we sat down here about the brick and mortar stores.
Right.
And I was thinking, my staff and I were saying, well, who besides Barnes & Noble is there? And we were thinking, well, I don't know if Walden's is around anymore because they closed here recently in one area. But I know that the Borders closed.
Right.
And so I get everything from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, one or the other.
Right.
And more Amazon nowadays. And it's just because it's easy. And I've also ordered from Barnes & Noble's thing, but if I want something really fast and I don't even want to wait the day for shipping or 2 days for shipping, I'll go down the street to Barnes & Noble. But so you can distribute to Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
And other there's a lot of other ones, small ones, right?
Yeah, because we're one of, I think there's about 80 or 90 publishers of varying size with Ingram Publisher Services, it's called. We do get that bookstore distribution. Now, some of our authors think, oh, that's great. That means I'll be in all the Barnes & Nobles around the country? Fabulous. Mm-hmm. No. What that means is that we will give you access, or we will give them access to your title through Ingram, through the catalogs, through the distribution centers that self-publishers cannot get. You just can't get it.
How about places like Sam's Club and places?
Yeah, those are called the big box stores.
Yeah, the big box stores.
That's another story. We have not gotten one of our books in with them yet. It's a little bit scary because their minimum order would be 25,000 books, and they're well known for sending a lot of books back, so you get a lot of returns. And so we're on the radar with a couple of our books, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's going to be kind of a, pucker up and make that decision, because
you had to be willing to gamble there.
You got to be willing to gamble, and it's a big, huge gamble because now you're talking 20,000 books, at $2 a book or $1.50. Okay, we got big money.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's something that we talked about previously, so I know the answer to some of these questions. But tell us about ebooks, because they're very popular, and I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, maybe I could just do an ebook. That sounds like it'd be cheaper to do. It might be smaller. It might not, and I could do something that more, instead of writing a novel, you could write an ebook, or something that you do well. And I was pleased to hear that you handle ebooks.
Oh,
so
yeah.
can you tell us what you do with ebooks?
We do. Ebooks are generally part of the process. I mean, in other words, we put the book out. If you came to us with a book, we would put it out in print, typically soft cover, and ebook. That's just going to happen. It's true that it's cheaper to put the book out only in ebook, and we do that. It's called Ebook First. And what happens then is that there's a kind of a threshold, and if the author sells enough of the ebooks, we'll put it out in print. Okay, very cool. But the fact of the matter is, when we're talking about media, you know this, do both if you can. Okay,
Right.
do both if you can. And then of course there's hardback. But ebook, everybody thinks of the biggies that we love, you know, are Kindle, Nook, iBooks, which is Apple, Google, Sanyo. Those are kind of the biggies. But our books actually go out to like 24 different ebook retailers. It's crazy.
So they show up on all of them.
They show up on all of them. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's a wide distribution.
Now is that because it's digital? Is that more profit per book? I mean, there's no cost.
There can be more profit, yes, because the overhead cost for the retailers is lower. So
Yeah,
naturally, you know, we like that. A lot of people think that the ebook sales are beat out print. It's not true.
Right.
It's still, they're not as high as print. They're down here. They're growing. Personally, I think they're gonna kind of even out. Print's not going away.
Right.
People still like to hold
the
it.
book,
I mean,
yeah.
I read the newspaper every day, but
I've gotten away from the newspaper.
I know, but I read all my books on my iPad.
No, see, I'm not into. I have read books on iPad and all, but I'm more of a. I like to have it in my hand. I like to mark it, and I know you can mark it on the iPad, and I have. But I do audiobooks though. Now, if you're going to do an audiobook, is that something where you arrange for the recording of it and do all that kind of stuff?
It depends. The only way a publisher is going to get involved with the production aspect of it is if typically the book is done really well in print and ebook, okay? And the money is there to do that. What we typically do is that we put it on the author to take care of that, or they go to someone like Audible, which takes a cut of the proceeds and kind of, you know, handles it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good way to be able to get the information from a book if you don't have time to sit and read all the time. So I use that all the time. All right. So and you work with agents. So if someone does have a book and they have written a book and they have an agent, then that doesn't keep them from working with you.
No.
Right? No. Okay. So
But the agent's going to come. I mean, the big difference is in the presentation, because the agent knows how to, you know, they write up a proposal. The synopsis is beautiful. It's concise. There's a marketing plan. There's, you know, information about past sales of the author, or it might be a debut author, but they're going to set it up appropriately. The work has been well edited, and you know, this is what we tell our new authors all the time. Look, you know, you gotta have it edited even before it comes to us if you want to have a chance. You know, so it's.
So if they wanted you to do it and they submit it to you and you think it's a worthwhile project, then you just bleed all over it and send it back to them and say, this is what correct all this, or this needs to be fixed.
No, we don't get into that. You know, the editing aspect of it in the beginning when they submit it. Let's say an author submits something to us, and my partner Joe Koehler and I mentioned to you, he was a managing editor at the Pilot, so he's a hard-nosed editor. Okay, he doesn't mess around, and so he'll read it. I'll read it. You know, maybe we'll have some other folks read it, and we'll go, yeah, this looks pretty good. Now, if it's a traditional deal, the bar is higher.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it needs to be incredible. It needs to go, you know, holy Toledo, have that effect with both Joe and I. So let's say it passes that. We then send a contract, or we're typically going to talk to the agent and say, hey, let's set up a call with the author, you know, and just find out what kind of a person they are. Are they a prima donna? Can they work with us? Are they coachable? Do they understand how to market, et cetera? And if all that goes well, we'll send a contract. All right. And the contract, then there may be some back and forth on that. They sign it, we're done, boom. Now we go into the creative development, meaning the editing, the cover. The editing will actually come later. The first thing that will come will be the cover.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's you're giving me a lot to think about. Actually, I'm thinking about myself because, you know, you made a good point.
You got a book. I knew it. You got a book in you.
I do. And a lot of people do.
Of course.
And I've actually.
But you know what they do? They call me up and they say, hey, I got a great idea for a book. Well, after doing almost 100 books, I can gently say, I don't want to hear about your idea. God bless you. Go write it.
Yeah.
And then come to me.
To you. Right.
Anyways.
Well, I have written something. So, but you made a good point that that there's nothing like having a book in your hand to say,
Yes.
here's a copy of my book. And so that kind of gives you some credibility and
Yes.
stuff. So you're absolutely right about that. All right, so let's talk about how authors submit their work to you, and what is the process that they need to go through. If someone does have a book now, not just have a good idea for one,
Right.
but they have a book.
Yeah.
Then what do you advise them to do? Do you advise them to talk to you before they decide if they're going to go traditional or ebook or self-publish or whatever? They should talk to you first,
Yeah.
and then you can help them make that decision.
It's a good, really good question. First of all, when they send a book in there, every author is hoping traditional. I mean, there's no question, unless they've already been rejected and they know that they're probably going to have to pay, or they've tried self-publishing or whatever. But our assumption always is that this may be a traditional deal. Okay, we never know. But they need to go to our website, it's KoehlerBooks.com, and go to the submissions page, and it'll tell you exactly what to do, what we're looking for, the synopsis, the marketing plan, the author's bio, the sales information, etc., and the book. And now sometimes they'll send 3, 4, 5 chapters, and they'll say, if you would like to see the completed manuscript, please let us know. Well, we're going to want to see it if we're interested. All right, we have to see it, because the problem is some authors will do a great job on those first 4 or 5 chapters, and then they'll just kind of fade out, and by the end of the book, it's you're snoring. So we see that, and then we make the decision based off of all that stuff.
Now, do you ever have a problem? I don't know why I thought of this, but do you have a problem where you get a book in and you look at it and you go, this sounds familiar? This is actually so-and-so's book with the names changed, or I mean, not exactly
that's
or
never
word for
happened.
word, but I mean, it's the same story with,
Yeah, that's never happened with us. I mean, you will get some similarities, like, okay, mysteries are hot, YA books, young adult books, futuristic type of books with young people in it shooting bows and arrows and exploding things and stuff like that. Okay, that's hot. So you get that kind of similarity. And gosh, I've heard this idea before, but no, we haven't had one that's been like plagiarized.
Well, sometimes it might not even be. I was thinking that it wasn't that it was really plagiarized with intent. It was just that it's maybe unintentional. The reason I was thinking that is my son can write songs. He writes music and all, and I could never do that. Every time I would go to think of doing something like that, it would already be something I'd heard somewhere before.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't know that's where it came from. So
well, see, that's the part. That's the analogy when I tell writers and groups all the time. I said, let's don't forget we're artists, and to be an artist, it requires inspiration and craft. So your son has the inspiration and the ideas to write that music, but then he needs the ability to play it or to compose it. Okay, so let's say he's a musician now. Yeah. Well, a writer, you're going to write a book. You need the inspired story, but you have to know how to write, and that's always an issue. Do the new writers, have they taken the time? Have they taken courses? How good are they? We reject a lot because they don't cut it, but we try to suggest. Go take some courses,
Right. And you've got everything from paperback to hardback.
Yeah.
And quite a few different ones, all different.
Here, you'll love this.
A beach murder mystery.
That one up. This one is like the 6th book in this collection, and they're all different writers. Okay, and I bought the beachmurdermystery.com site, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it. I did mine as the first one. I'll see if I can but attract other writers. Well, here they came. And so now we've done it. So we have a little thing. We have a brand going with this. And this is the latest one, and it's pretty darn good. We think it's going to sell, by a local lady, Rennie Pearson. This one is really cool, though, Rory. It was a traditional deal.
Virginia's for
very good writers, and they came to me with the title of Virginia is for Murderers. And I laughed at them and I said, there ain't no way. You'll have a trademark infringement. I've been through one. Trademark infringement, problem. And so I said, well, why don't you try Virginia is for Mysteries? They got it approved by the state. So now there's 14 different writers all over the state who are doing events in Charlottesville and Richmond and down here. They're killing it. So this is a good system.
That's great.
Right there.
That's great. All right, and you had a hardback book here too.
Yep. This is the Pitcher. He's probably our most successful writer, William Hazelgrove out of Chicago. And you know, there's just something great about a hardback book. You know, we do legacy books also for guys. And talking to a guy next week, 90-year-old guy who was in the Navy, 90 years old, and he's got his act together and he's written a book. He doesn't care about getting it up on Amazon. He wants copies for his grandkids. And I thought, man, you know, God bless you, but he's going to get a hardback.
Well, that's something that we didn't really talk about a whole lot, was legacy books.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, a legacy book is basically a memoir or an autobiography or a biography written about someone. And their purpose is to leave their mark. It's Kilroy. It's like, I was here and I want people to know. Well, they understand that it may not be something that is going to sell. In fact, we tell them it probably won't, unless they're a big name or a VIP and so forth. You know, we got a local guy, Bob Walker, who was the 3rd MCPON in the Navy. I don't know if you know what a MCPON is.
I don't.
Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. I didn't know what it was. I was an Air Force brat. It's a big deal. So he's selling some books to enlisted guys, okay? But a lot of them are just that they want to have it done well, have it done right. They want it edited. They want a beautiful cover, everything done right. And that's it. You know.
Okay, well, that's cool. Is there anything I haven't touched on that you'd like to mention? You work with authors all over the place. Doesn't matter where they're from.
We have authors local. We have authors in Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, and Europe. You know, the UK, all over the States, Canada, you name it. It's pretty cool. We're coming up on about 100 books that we've published.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay. All right. Well, if you have a book in you, or you've got a book sitting on your computer and you don't know what to do with it, and you're wondering which route you should take, traditional, ebook, or self-publishing, you can give John a call and visit their website. The contact information is at the end of this video. It's also on the bottom of this page. And they do some beautiful work as far as the covers and all, and they represent a great deal of authors, both fiction and nonfiction. And they have that route to traditional publishing that so many of us wish we could get our books in. So if you need some help, then give him a call. And I really appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
And
Appreciate it.
being part of the program today.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. All right.